Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our fourth and final webinar in our series of Working in a COVID-19 World. My name is Mary Ann McGowan, and I will serve as your moderator for today's session. I'm a board member for CWEEL, where I serve as chair for the Marketing and Communications Committee. I'm retired from Duke Energy and have begun my second act as Vice President of Strategic Development with the Utilities Group. It's a full-service energy management firm. CWEEL is the Council of Women in Energy and Environmental Leadership. It is a subset of AEE, which is the Association of Energy Engineers. CWEEL was formed to promote women in the energy and environmental sectors. It provides professional growth through networking, career development and training, and leadership opportunities. This webinar series was created to help with career development during this pandemic. It provides practical tips and advice to apply to your professional and personal lives. This is the last of the series, but all the webinars have been recorded and are available for review and viewing. The information of where you can find those will be available at the end of this webinar series. I'm really honored to be with you today and to have the opportunity to introduce you to an outstanding panel of fabulous women. Laurie Jackson is President and CEO of Utility Advantage. She is going to speak on self-care and self-discipline in the COVID-19 world. Cara Olmstead is the Director of Renewables at Con Edison, and she will address surviving and thriving family and work through COVID-19 world. Debra Lenny is Director of Sales of North America for Direct Energy, and she's going to tell us how to be your best self working remotely and share with you 5 key learning opportunities that she has discovered. These women are all CWEEL members, and they are members of our board of directors. I am certain that you will find all of these stories extremely insightful. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to the possibility of CWEEL membership. Membership benefits include local, regional, national CWEEL events. We have an extremely robust mentoring program, a wonderful scholarship and awards program. We offer training and certifications and much, much more. You can get more details about CWEEL on our website at www.cweel.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Laurie Jackson, who will speak on self-care and self-discipline in this COVID-19 world. Good to have you with us, Laurie.
Thank you, Mary Ann. I'm glad to be here and to be with all of you today on this last of our webinar series. It's been a great couple of weeks of sharing of information and getting feedback from everyone. So I'm glad to be back again and look forward to some Q&A at the end as well. If you want to go to the next slide, please, Mary Ann. And while you're doing that, I just want to say thank you to Mary Ann, too. She's been great at coordinating things today for us, and she does an outstanding job as the lead for our CWEEL newsletter and all of our social media. So thank you, Mary Ann, for all that you do for CWEEL. A little bit about myself. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. So straight out of college, I started working in the energy industry. And over that time, I've worked remotely on and off at different stages of my life. So I do have firsthand knowledge of kind of the challenges and the benefits of working from home. But I will say that this has been very different because in this case, we are mainly working from home, but for all of us, it is not by choice. We're doing this because we're in a pandemic, and that does make a big difference. I do have a passion for helping others and the environment, and those are two key drivers that have been consistent throughout my career. I'm active in my Christian faith, and I have pictures of my babies there because my real baby, my one son, he's 23 and really doesn't want to be called a baby anymore, but these are my kids. So that's Bella, the 150-pound Great Dane mix, who's 2 years old, and she's just the sweetest. And then our two cats, Manuel and Little Cat. Next slide. And the dog and the cat, they kind of get along, but not as much as, we would hope. Okay, I'm not seeing the next slide.
Little technical difficulty.
Well, while you're looking at the photos of my family, I also am married, so my husband isn't in here either. And he actually just joined ministry, so I'm now a minister's wife, and that's a whole nother stage of life for me. Very exciting.
Michelle, okay. I'm transferring that center role to you so that you can advance these slides.
Thank you. So when we think about ourselves, we're really a combination of body, mind, and spirit. So I'm going to be talking about self-care and self-discipline, some of the things that I've done over the span of the last, 4 to 5 months. And then you're going to hear some great stories from Cara and Deb about their own experiences. So starting on the physical side, one of the things that I've done is establish a fitness routine. So that was one of the things that has been on my to-do list for a very long time. And finally, with the stress of what's been going on, I just said, I have to make this happen. So I've been walking in the mornings 4 times a week. And the best thing about that, too, is that I get outside. So having that regular fitness routine is really helpful. And, I've been reading about mindful movement. So getting out and being specific about looking for something in that outside environment. Like today, I'm going to really look at the birds as I'm walking, my 3-mile walk. And it's amazing how when you're mindful, when you're really enjoying the outdoors, all that stuff stops coming in because you are focusing your attention outward and not into your head. So that's been a great exercise. Eating well, it's been a great time for us to do more in the kitchen. So for sure, I've been eating better. And it's something that I would encourage everyone to do. And then the last thing is practicing social distancing. So I know there's lots of views about this. So I think that most of the people that are on this call and in this webinar, we think of science as something that we follow and that we delve into. And so the science is there to promote social distancing. One of the things that I'd done when we first started was to make my own mask. And many people went online and they said, oh, how do I make a mask? And really quickly, I made one out of a bandana and hair ties, right? And that was my first mask. And when I had to go to the food store, that's what I wore. And not everybody was wearing masks initially. But then after a couple of weeks, we knew this thing wasn't going away. And so I went online and learned how to sew a mask. And this one was pretty cool because you can actually put like a little filter in there. So you put paper towel in there and it's like a daily, clean filter. And I thought that was cool. I made it out of an old T-shirt that I had. And then this thing kept going on. And I'm like, really? So my husband said, no, enough's enough. It's time for us to get like legitimate masks. And now we have a whole bunch of these that, I keep washed and clean. But boy, how this has evolved. And I would say one thing was I tapped into kind of the creative side of myself in that experience so that the mask thing wasn't quite so daunting. And I didn't really feel like I'm doing this because I'm told I have to. I'm really doing it because I know that when I wear a mask, I'm helping other people. And that ties into, my passion of wanting to help others. So I hope that you will take that all seriously for those that are watching. And please do the practice social distancing and wear the mask. On the self-care, on the emotional side, I took this from one of the other sessions. So I cannot claim that this is my work, but I will tell you that it ministered to me emotionally in a way that I didn't even realize I needed it. And so this comes from the Canadian federal government, tips for working remotely as a result of COVID. And the first thing they say is you are not working from home. You are at home during a crisis trying to work. And boy, the relief that gave me, it was like a load lifted off of my shoulders that I didn't even realize that I was carrying emotionally, which was trying to keep things normal, trying to keep, that productivity level and the concentration and trying to keep it all together. But the reality is that our physical, our mental, and emotional health is more important than anything else right now. And recognizing that this is a crisis that we're working through, and really giving ourselves the grace to know that this is not just working from home. I thought that was profound. And the last two comments that I took from that were, number one, be kind to yourself and don't judge how you're coping based on how you see others cope. And trust me, when you see these videos and everything seems to be going great, you're not seeing all the stuff that's happening the rest of the day or behind the scenes, and people have a lot of different things going on and are coping in different ways. So don't compare yourselves. And on the contrast to that is be kind to others and don't judge how they're doing based on how you're coping. Because, we're all different and we all have, and you'll hear that in the stories today, we're dealing with this in different ways with different challenges. So be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And I think these are great words that have really helped me. Next slide, please. So on the spiritual side, I wanted to bring this in because, we're starting to get some deep questions from people, as this continues to go on. Why is this even happening? And where's God? And what does this mean for me personally? And what does this mean for the world? What is going to happen in the long term because of this? We're starting to see more pictures of how COVID's impacting Africa now and places that have already been under so much stress. And now it's just, one more added layer of stress on top of it. And so these are deeper questions. And so at this time, I really encourage people to dive deeper into faith. Don't veer away from it. Don't feel like God isn't there. Try to spend some time in quiet prayer meditation, regardless of what your faith is. Take the time to explore it. Turn off that television. I know it's compelling to have it on and hear what's going on in the world, but we do need some quiet time right now. It's really good for our spirit. In my belief, I believe God is with us all the time, and he wants a relationship with us, and not just with like global mankind, but like a personal relationship with every single one of us. And that, I know that God, he provides, he delivers, he guides, he protects, he does so much for us that I have great hope. I have hope for the future, and I have hope for today, and I have peace. So I think that going in and spending that time spiritually is also important for us, as well as the physical and emotional care. And then the other thing we can do from a spiritual standpoint is really to look out, not just look in, but look out. And so by giving, we receive. And so I've done a number of these things, but some of them, you have to go out of the house for, and if you're not comfortable with that, or if it's not the right time because of what's happening in your region, there are things that you can do even from home. So I've donated blood. I didn't realize, but that's a really critical need right now. If you're capable of doing it, I strongly encourage you to donate blood. Visit or call, you don't have to leave home, but call that neighbor that, a person who lives alone, especially, because this has been really trying for people who live by themselves, not to be able to go out, not to have that social connection that they used to have. So check in on them. And we actually did participate in a march for Black Lives Matters, and there was a lot of debate in our household as to whether we would go out and do that, but everyone socially distanced, everyone wore masks. I was so impressed with the organization and the commitment of this crowd to keeping each other safe. It was an amazing experience. So, I encourage you to try to do these things along the way. Next slide, please. So on the self-discipline side, there are a couple of habits that I've employed that I think are really important right now. The first one is keep a journal. So if you haven't started one, this would be a great time to do it. And I think the reason this is important, there are a couple reasons. One is that it helps us to explore our feelings, explore things that are happening, to kind of document how we're doing, and that's helpful. Just putting things on paper helps us. But the other thing is that in our lifetime and in generations past, we have not had a pandemic like this. And so not only are you journaling for your own personal benefit, but it also creates an historical record, which I think could be very valuable over time. So I think keeping a journal there's many reasons to do it, but even if you haven't started one yet, try starting one now. And then, you'll have it to look back on or to share with family down the road. Make time for creativity and fun. I know we hear this, but we really need to do it. If you ever thought like, gosh, I'd really like to start painting or, whatever that thing is, the archery, there's all kinds of things that we can do. And this is a great time to tap into our creative side. So I think it's a good time to do something that you've had on your list of to-dos, but just haven't gotten to it. That's creative. And then getting together for that family fun time. So we've got to tune out, we've got to shut it down, and we've got to spend time with our families. It's so beneficial. And that's a discipline because we think, oh, I'll get to it, but then we don't get to it. So make sure that you discipline yourself to do these things. So benefits will far outweigh any time taken away from work or whatever else you were going to do. Be flexible. So having a schedule is a really important part of self-discipline. I know in the prior sessions I've talked about that, kind of blocking out some time in your day for work and other things, kids. But we have to be flexible because, we can have that plan, but then things interfere with it. So allow that for yourself. And the last one is be forgiving. So, we all make a mess from time to time. I love this photo. So we have to be forgiving of ourselves and forgiving of others. And next slide, please. Last slide that I have is to make sure that you give yourself props. So, you talk about making a weekly to-do list. My advice is to make your weekly achievement list. The things that you've completed, the things that you accomplished, that exciting new things that you did, whatever that is, make that on a list and then celebrate it. Like, wow, what a great week I had. Give yourself props, pat yourself on the back, celebrate, and you'll find that employing these strategies are going to make getting through this next stage of COVID easier than the first stage that we went through. So thank you so much. Glad to be here. Looking forward to some Q&A at the end.
Thank you so much, Laurie. That was great advice. Really appreciate your insight. Cara, I am so excited to hear your presentation, and I am particularly interested in the thriving piece of this presentation that you're going to give us. So take it away.
Thank you, Nancy. Laurie, great job as usual. So my name is Cara Olmstead, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about my experiences in working with my family at home during COVID-19. I guess I hope for you that some of the things I'm going to talk about resonate with you, and that maybe you can take some of them away for not only this time in our lives, but also going forward. So just as way of my background, next slide, there I am with my walking buddy, Rosie. She didn't make it the 3 miles, so we turned around after 2 and she got a haircut. Those are my 3 daughters, and Emma is 18, Lara in the middle is 14, and Jenny on the right is 16. And there is my husband. He's part of the family too. And during this time, he actually has increased his number of hours working. He's retired and has a part-time job, and as an essential service, he increased his time commitment to more like 50 to 60 hours because other people weren't available. So that also made it interesting from me working at home, and then he's leaving now. And then there's Con Edison. I've worked for Con Edison for 35 years. And interestingly enough, when COVID started, I took on a different position within the company, which I'm very thrilled about, and that is managing the community solar facilities and bringing on new customers and developing the customer operations protocols, things like that, and developing new business. And that's I've worked for the company for many years and developed new businesses, and I've loved it. I've really enjoyed every job I've had. And so to me, that's been a great part of my life, in addition to my lovely girls. So my perspective at this time, next slide, please, is that it's been the best of times and it's been the worst of times rolled into each day and one life. And to me, not unlike other times in our lives, if we were to look more closely, we've had ups and downs and times when we have felt happy and not happy. And I believe that there's opportunity to see things differently and expand our understanding of ourselves at this time. Next slide, I believe. When I first was sent home, I didn't really know how this was going to work. I seemed the same, but I didn't really seem the same. There was this constant kind of undercurrent of stress and anxiety, and I didn't know where it was coming from or really how to get rid of it, and it just seemed like a very big weight. In addition, there were COVID-19 casualties and people who had succumbed in the company. My husband was sick early on in March, which kind of added to the stress or just the unknowing of what life was going to be all about right now. And my girls missed out on once-in-a-lifetime opportunities that they would never see again. And there was loss and there was sadness in that you can't say doesn't exist or everything's going to be fine. You just have to say, yes, I feel sad that it's gone. But there were also good things. Next slide, please. Because life was really still happening. As you can see, there's my daughter Emma. We did a drive-by graduation from her high school, and Laura on the right, she too graduated from 8th grade. She didn't even get out of the car for that one. And Jenny, though she didn't travel overseas as she had planned to Moldova to learn Russian, she did make us an incredible Easter dinner, Russian Easter dinner. And there you can see her with her cakes. So what I kind of have had the opportunity during this time is to kind of reconnect with my girls. I've worked my whole life, and this was the time to just be home and to see them grow and who they had become. And they also got to learn who I was, what I did for my work, how did I function in my work, what it meant to me. And it was funny that Emma created this little logo for me, Director of Cool Things, Cara Olmstead Content Solutions. And it was nice for me to be able to share that because work has always been something I went to. Oh, they heard lots about it, but it wasn't just the same. So the bottom line is I wouldn't have traded this time for anything. But I will say that all the preconceived notions of what life was supposed to be were gone. This was really survival time. So every image or idea or thought that you had of how it was supposed to be and what kind of person you were supposed to be and how you were going to live up to everybody's expectations, I was going to have it all and live it all and do it all, forget it. Okay, this was bottom line grassroots, let's figure out how to get this done. And at the same time, it wasn't just the tactical things that needed to be done, the cooking, the cleaning, the shopping, all that kind of good stuff. And more importantly, to me, it was being there to listen and being there to listen for kind of any expressions of boredom, loneliness, anxiety from the girls and to be receptive and aware and alert to those sorts of things. My takeaway was that if I was not happy, no one was going to be happy. And this, I think, kind of rings true for most women. I think we all recognize that we are indeed the leader of the pack. And the people around us take their cues from us and how we are reacting to things and how if we're experiencing that we're overwhelmed or that we're anxious or fearful, fearful. That's what they take away. That's their reflection, and that you don't want it to be. I never wanted it to be their reflection. Is that they would see me like that. I wanted to be more to them than that. So my message is, if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be there to take care of others. And what I mean by take care of, it's more of define what you want and what you want to be, and communicate it to those who are around you and who love you, and connect with them. Next slide. So some of the ways that I've done this is basically just to let go. Let go of the things or the methods or manner in which life you felt has to be conducted. So this was my conversion from being the superwoman to just being a superwoman. And also to take my time, take my own time. So that what I mean by this is, where is my personal time? And I, in fact, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning now just for my time. And some of that consists of the following that I've listed here. I find that meditation has, if you can believe this, slows things down, as if life wasn't slow enough. It's not slow in your brain, right? So your brain is incredibly busy, and now with all the additional responsibilities and sometimes no support, because you can't have other people in to support you, your brain is even busier trying to process all the things that need to get done and have to get done. And what I found with meditation, it allowed me to just take a pause and to say to myself, well, how do I really want to react to that? And so I could behave with intent as opposed to being more reactionary. And that helps considerably with developing those connections, being able to listen, and being positive in what you're doing, because you're not constantly running on empty and running out of steam. And it's not to say that you should be running, it just slows everything down so you can actually enjoy what's around you. And believe me, there's plenty of joy. The other thing I've done, and that I highly recommend, is to move. I'm certainly no athlete, never have been, that's not my thing, but I do feel that getting out, breathing, and walking is very important. I also love to garden. I think I more like to clean up. I like so it looks very tidy out there and gorgeous. I have a huge yard and lots of weeding to do. And that's how I relax, and that's how I enjoy things. From community of friends, this is the time where you pick the people that you can really talk to. We all have acquaintances in our lives, and I have found that I've, in fact, reconnected with my sisters very much at 5 o'clock in the morning, since they too are early risers. And we FaceTime, and if you can hear that, that is the dog who's trying to get into my office here. The other thing is to nourish your body and your soul. And that little box that you see, that's not from like the internet. That is my daughter. They've all taken nutrition and health like under their wing, and that is her. That's one of her snack boxes. There was one of the kids had mentioned that during this time you were either going to end up a chunk, a hunk, or a drunk as a result of being a monk. All of these kinds of behaviors are like the self-soothers to kind of deal with the stress. And so rather than deal with yes, you want to deal with the stress, but that's not the avenue. That's really not the avenue. I hope that some of these other things ring true to you. Next slide. So in terms of surviving and thriving with those that you love, a couple of the things that I have found very helpful, or kind of like, wow, look at what's happening, is if I lead, they will follow. And by this, one of the things that I did early on was to kind of simplify life, simplify the cleanup process, right? If you have to clean the floors, it's best that nothing's on them, therefore let's get rid of it. Okay, and that's exactly what I did. I cleaned out the house. Well, lo and behold, I had two daughters cleaned out their rooms. Hallelujah. I had my husband say, oh, I think I cleaned out the garage. I've been waiting for that for I don't know how long, but that was a good thing too. And that little book, that Marie Kondo book, I'm sure most of you own it. I can't recommend it enough. The Art of Tidying Up. It just speaks to what possessions mean to us and how to put them in their proper place in your life. And in fact, I feel in many ways that sometimes my possessions have weighed me down. And there were lots of things I loved, but boy, if I hadn't used it in 20 years, I think it's time to let somebody else enjoy it. And that's what I did. There's always Goodwill. There's always tons of organizations that you can give your stuff to and put it to good use and make people happy. Applauding independence, which I think applies to any age that your children are. I mean, my children are older, but when they have taken on cooking, which they all have in their own way, vegan recipes, vegetarian recipes, we've got desserts, we've got this, we've got people focusing on nutrition, all of it. Applaud it, whatever it is and in whatever capacity. And you know, my sister told me when the girls were little, she said, you know, she got them knitting needles because she's a very good knitter, and she said, you know, don't expect them to make anything of this. And I'm like, the person that I am, excuse me, I'm like, what do you mean? Aren't we going to make a scarf or mittens or something? The kids were little. They were like, I don't know, 6, 8 years old. Well, no. One, they're not you. And two, they're just starting out. So let them start. Remember what it was to start something. Start something you didn't know how to do. And so that's why I think it's great when the little ones take on something, or my big ones. Share the work. Tell them what you need. And tell them how they can support you and what it means for them to support you. Encourage creativity, and don't get overwhelmed or bogged down with the mess. It's more important to pull out all the stuff. I don't know if some of you are the types to be have arts and crafts, but I have bins and loads of bins of arts and crafts projects. And in fact, during this time, I have taught my daughter to sew clothing. I have sewn for many, many years, and I've never had the patience to sit and teach them, but she wanted to do it. And now she tells me, Mom, don't help me. So it's a different role for me. And also to engage in play. We've taken out every game we have, badminton, ping pong table, games, everything, and we play. And that's a lot of fun too. Next slide. So what do we do with all this work stuff? So some of the things that I've done, as you can see, and I'm sitting here right now at that same desk, is to create your space. And in fact, it was the funniest thing, but this room was notoriously the messiest room because nobody really went into it on a regular basis. So I'd put everything up here that needed to be put someplace else in the house. And then when it came time for this to be my space, that was the first thing I cleaned out. And that was the first thing I set up so that I would have a place that was mine and it was organized to serve me. And I love it. And those are my 3 girls when they were little in those photographs. I set time limits, when I'm going to work and when I'm going to play. And I got to tell you, my girls hold me to it. And I will tell you the 2 little pictures I have down there. One of them is at 5:02. Laura said we put up her zip line this past weekend from her birthday, and she wanted to go out on it, and I was not going to let her go without me. So at 5:02, she came, she got me, let's go. And there we are out playing and on her on the zip line, and that thing goes up 16 feet. Yes, 16 feet. Okay, that's why I'm out there. And my other daughter, Emma, writes me these notes, God bless her soul. And this one says, it's 4:56, which means it's almost the end of the day, which means you need to stop working. And there you have it. You need to stop working. And you just need to put it away. It'll be there tomorrow, I can assure you. Next slide. There we go. So my message for this time is to embrace it and really enjoy each moment for what it brings. Sometimes that's really hard because the laundry list of things to get done is huge. But when all those things are gone on the outside, you can look at really what's important. And those around you are the ones that are really important. So be still and listen to yourself and communicate what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and also to listen to what the folks around you are saying and how they need you, and to be grateful for you and who you are, right? No expectations, no perfection in this, but for who you are, genuinely who you are, and what your life is all about. And then I wanted to share a little hygge with you. If you're not familiar with the hygge, this is a, who knew? The Danes are the happiest people on the earth. And so there is a wonderful book about hygge. And basically what it is the quality of coziness and comfortable conviviality that engenders a feeling of contentment or well-being. And that's, I think, one of the things that I've taken away from this whole experience is just that feeling. Next slide.
Cara, thank you so much for such a meaningful look into your world, and for being so honest in sharing everything that you've experienced. I want to particularly thank you for the acknowledgement of loss. I know that is a difficult thing for all of us to deal with, and sometimes I don't think it's mentioned because people are afraid to mention it. Thank you for sharing that. Deb, I'm anxious. For all of you online, I think you're going to find Deb's story particularly interesting. She has a unique experience with multi-generational people in her home, and we're all anxious to hear her best self working remotely. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Wow, Cara and Laurie, two fantastic presentations, so much information. And one of the things that I would say before I jump into a little bit of my key learnings from COVID is try to employ one or two best practices that you hear today. You know, when you go through training, sometimes I want to write everything down and there's a tendency to feel a little overwhelmed, but don't do that. Think about yourself and think about if there's one or two things that you can employ and practice every day. So I'm really happy to be here. My story is a little bit unique. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about myself. So Mary Ann, next slide. Mainly because if you don't know who I am, Deb Lenny, then you're really not going to understand what drives me day to day and how our family situation, how we've survived COVID and how we're continuing to survive COVID. The pictures on the left, yeah, I was born in Philadelphia. This is really important. South Philadelphia, a very large Italian family. That's me on the left there. The folks in the middle are my grandparents and my grandmother in particular. Very strong family thread. We stayed in Philadelphia, South Philadelphia for a while as a family, and then my parents moved to New Jersey, but my grandmother was always that driving force. And that force was family first. No matter what you do in your life, there is nothing more important than family. I grew up with all guy cousins. And I give my grandmother so much credit because she was the one that always said, Deb, you got to toughen up, you have to survive, and you can't give up. She was just a plethora of information and wisdom for me, and that constant reminder of family. Even when we moved to New Jersey, I always found myself back in Philadelphia with her on Sundays all day and with my cousins. And the reasons why I'm telling you that now is because my situation right now is that everybody on the right is today. It's my husband Lance, my daughter Emma. I also have an Emma, my son Luke. Emma's going to be a senior in high school. Luke will be a junior at Lehigh. And then my parents are on the right. So we went from being a family of three to five home at any given time to all 6 of us being at home, working at home, going to school at home, and we had to make a lot of changes. So you'll hear a little bit about my experience with my family through COVID, and more importantly, the things that we learned, and maybe you can take some of those away. Next slide. A couple of other key things about me, you know, where I went to school, my undergraduate degree, engineering, and then master's from LaSalle. But really, I've had 30 years in energy, and I've worked with 3 predominant companies, PSE&G to start, Hess, and Direct Energy. Most of my tenure was at Hess. I did a phenomenal amount of learning at that company. I had all types of roles, working at terminals to helping Hess develop a gas and power business. And now I find myself at Direct Energy in a sales role, managing a sales team across the East Coast, and who would have known? Hobbies that are really important to me, obviously STEM, AEE, and CWEEL, big part of my life, whether that's locally promoting STEM programs in high schools and middle school, to being on the national board with the CWEEL ladies. The 2 other symbols down there, I was a swimmer my whole life. I am actually a stroke and turn official for swimming. I do a lot of time volunteering now, my time, since there are no swim meets, teaching people how to be stroke and turn officials. And then also being very active with triathlons. Next slide. Okay, so I'm gonna just jump and dive right into it. The very first aha moment for me in COVID was stop apologizing. You know, we are not at work. We are at home. You might see there's stairs behind me. You might see my daughter, my son, my parents walk up those stairs. And one of the things that I've learned is I welcome it. I don't ignore them. I don't try to hush them away. I wave, and I'm happy they're here. And what's important about that is it's not only about me, but it's also about my teams and the teams that I lead, and to encourage them to also not shush their family away. Bring them in. Say hello to the kids. The pictures down here are some of my favorite people. The 2 guys I work with, Kevin and John, and they're beautiful children who I love to see when we're on calls. It just puts a bright smile on your face. And obviously, Laurie down here with Bella. Like, if Bella's barking in the background, don't apologize for it. Again, the words of wisdom from my grandmother. And I've constantly reminded myself of this as I've been having meetings from home and meeting with other folks, is you really don't know what is happening with someone. So to what Laurie was talking about before, be kind, be compassionate, embrace your family, embrace your peers' families. Again, we're not at work, we're at home. At the beginning of COVID, my parents loved that I was home. So they would always come in and see me, and I would be like, "Hi, Dad, how you doing? Hi, Mom." And I think my team really appreciated that, because then they didn't feel the added pressure if their daughter or son or dog or vacuum cleaner was going in the background. So stop apologizing, give yourself a break, be kind and compassionate. Next slide. This one was interesting. Everyone has talked about personal space. The folks that know me well, like Laurie in particular, I remember having a conversation with Laurie when COVID first happened. I was a wreck at the beginning at home, because again, I'm trying to work at my kitchen table. I have my parents walking in and out. My dad's asking me what I want from Wegmans, which I loved. And my children are trying to take exams and study. And we got to a place where everyone had to find their personal space. I'm actually up in a folding table upstairs. The picture on the right is my daughter Emma. We made like a makeshift desk for her, and that's my husband Lance, actually in the basement. One of the key things with this is, though, it's good to define personal time, work time. But remember, because you're at home, again, you have to give yourself a break. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to mesh those lines. We're not just 9 to 5 all the time anymore. So ensure that you have your own personal space and everyone around you has their personal space. Because my parents know now that Luke might be taking an exam or I'm on a conference call like I am today. So personal space is a must. Next slide. I love this one. This one cracks me up. My son was the first to do it, hanging signs outside of his personal space when he had an exam in progress. So this third key learning was really about the planning and the preparations. So again, we have 6 adults at home. At the end of every day, our family, the blessing of COVID has been that we can have dinner together as a family, all 6 of us. And I love it. We love it. We have great political debates at the table. We love it. But what we also spend some time doing is what is happening the next day. And we don't try to plan too far in advance, right? We just get through one day at a time. So at dinner every day, we talk about what happened and have our political debates, and then we get into, all right, what's happening the next day for everyone? Because it's really important for my parents to know that my son is taking a 3-hour final. He's taking summer classes right now. These exams, he cannot be interrupted. And Emma was taking AP exams, same thing. And it really helps all of us get on the same page. We have a family calendar, we do it online together. But the planning, we don't try to plan for what works for us. We don't try to plan too far ahead because there's just too many of us. Because again, my situation was that from 7:30 in the morning till about 5, Emma was at high school. She wasn't home all day. Well, now she's home. Luke was at college. Well, now he's home. So the planning and the preparation and clear communication among all of us is really important. Next slide. Number 4, this one, I know Laurie has touched on it. Cara has touched on it. It's really about taking time for yourself. And we're not here to say what that looks like for you, but you need to figure that out. I mean, I think about prior COVID, what I really miss is some of the time I used to have in my car, as an example. I have salespeople all over the East Coast, so I would say drive to Pittsburgh. I would listen to the radio for that time, or I'd take the train to DC. It's amazing how just because we're home, we lose sight of the fact that we need to take our own personal time. It gives us an opportunity to make sense of the chaos around us. You could try gardening. That the top right is Laurie's garden, and that was actually 2 months ago, Laurie, so I can't wait to see what it looks like now. But figure out what that time means for you. Journaling, hobbies, take a master class, a bath, meditate, pray. For me, exercise is really big. But we take that for granted because we're home. So I implore you to really think about what's that time for yourself, because it is very easily to get lost in your family and the needs of your family and the needs of work being at home. Next slide. My family makes I have these 2 reminders posted right now, right across from me on my printer. And I want you to think about what are your daily reminders? Network you. What are your daily reminders? And from these 2, the things that I love the most is that, I might not be able to control the situation, but I absolutely am in charge of how I respond. And the last one, going back to my grandmother, around doing the right thing. Just sometimes take a step back, breathe, and just do the right thing, because it comes full circle. And I'm hoping that you have daily reminders around yourself in your home to help you get from day to day. The shifting of your mindset, I love this one also. The one at the bottom is really important. I find myself, I tend to get worried about what's happening. Like now I'm worried about the resurgence of cases and hospitalizations. But I'm really grateful for my health. And I know that I'm not alone. And I would say that out of all of these webinar series, please connect in with us at CWEEL, network, and reach out. There's so many people that can help you throughout COVID, whether that's personally with whatever situation you have going on at home, or even professionally, how to network and take advantage of what's happening with COVID and to connect with people in different ways. So number 5 was, what are your daily reminders? So finally, it's about the journey. What are you going to remember? What did you learn? And what did you share? And these are some of our favorite things that we've done as a household. Again, my sticky notes, Team Zoot, because my husband signed me up for a triathlon team. So even though I'm not doing races, when I put my Zoot shirt on and I went for my run this morning, I felt like that superwoman that Cara talked about. The bottom is a blow-up car we bought my daughter since she didn't get the chance to take her driver's license. Her drive-by prom, my parents playing Scrabble, and please don't judge me, playing some beer pong in the basement with the kids. So thank you everybody for your time. Well, the last slide is just a little advertisement. On the board, I'm responsible for the chapter liaison committee. And what we do we are representatives from local AEE chapters to help support CWEEL and AEE. We're a committee of 30 fabulous people that meet once a month and really help folks month to month. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. Bye, everybody.
Deb, thanks so very much. I really appreciate you sharing your story. It is it's interesting to see, at least to be part of all of that multi-generational view of the world. And you're very blessed to have such a strong grandparent in your life. I had that same, and that was a wonderful experience. I'd like to see if there's any questions. I want to first of all give, before we get into the Q&A section, I do want to give a big shout out to Michelle Whitlock, who is a member of the AEE Association that has supported us in much of our support and technology issues through CWEEL. She has been a saving grace to me on a personal level many times, and she's been particularly supportive of this webinar series, and we're so very grateful to have her. I believe, Michelle, are you or can you view the questions that might have come in?
I can. And right now we don't have questions from the audience, just some comments about thank you, these are great resources on the books, and about reaching out to CWEEL during these times. So if you want, I can ask Laurie first, how do you find motivation to keep going? And this is on the movement, mindful movement. How do you find motivation to keep going?
Well, that's a great question. And when I started walking, I've had a goal, and so I started really last year with the goal of going to Machu Picchu. And amazingly, and this is how God works, He presented an opportunity for me through CWEEL to actually travel to Chile for a speaking engagement around women in energy. And since I was going to Chile, I thought, well, I'm going to swing by Peru and go to Machu Picchu, which I did. And it was incredible. But it started with a goal. And so it really kept me going. Now I don't have that goal, and it's a little harder to get myself going consistently the way I had been. So I do feel that I need to find another goal that is going to drive whatever that exercise program is. Similar to Deb was talking about the triathlon. You know, when you've got something to work towards, it makes it easier to stay committed to whatever that program is that you've implemented. What I will say is, in terms of the mindful movement, and this is helping me now, is that having a purpose with every walk, something I'm going to look for, something they say, you know, look to find triangles in nature. Like, it really could be anything. It's just a way of focusing on being in the moment that makes the walk really enjoyable. And so that in itself has actually given me more motivation, because now I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to look for today? And it makes the walk and the journey even, you know, that much more enjoyable. So those are the two things that I would share.
Okay, and then Cara, how was it taking on a new position during the pandemic?
It is in some ways stressful. I feel very lucky in that I'm working for a new boss, someone I don't even know, who just joined the company, which is shocking, right? After 35 years, you think everybody thinks I know everybody. All 17,000 employees, okay. But, and she's fantastic. You know, in energy, you don't very often get female bosses. And what I like about her so much is that she's like human, and she's normal, right? You know, her hair's in a ponytail, and before Sunday, my hair was in a ponytail. Not my best look, but okay, every day, ponytails, no makeup on Zoom. And, you know, I appreciated her, and she appreciated me for my talents. And I just kept plugging along. Will I say there's a lot of work? Yes. Do I have to define when I'm available and not available, and what I am actually going to get done and capable of being able to get done in a day? Absolutely, because the list is long. And one of the books I recommended, Getting Things Done, you know, really helped me. And this Deb also brought up it defined, when you take away one thing from a book, that's kind of what I try to do. And the thing that I took away from that book was, okay, so suppose I say I need to develop an acquisition plan for Illinois. Well, there's like 10 subtasks to developing that acquisition plan for Illinois. And to be able to write all of those things down and think them through then really helped me to assess, okay, so what is this really all about? What do I really have to get done today? So instead of just doing high level, where I got 20 high level things, well, there's no way. Once I drill down and then start to further articulate what needs to be done, then it helps you synthesize the information and manage it a lot better. And I will say, you know, I talked about the meditation. That just helps me manage it and keeps my inner core very calm to say, okay, this is how we're going to manage things. This is what we're going to do first. This is what, you know, these are the hours of the day. And I go downstairs and check out how everybody's doing, right? Everybody gets up later than me, see how the kids are doing, who's doing what. They got their exercise group outside. So it's also being part of the family at the same time, like everybody has talked about. And so that's kind of how I've been very blessed in terms of the position and the opportunity it's given me, because I'm crazy about it. I got so lucky with this boss, boy, oh boy. And the whole team for that matter. I'm having a great time. I really am. So.
Amen.
Okay, Deb, I think we have like a minute or two left if you want to answer this question. It's, do you schedule alone time for your children?
Yeah, I think, again, I think, you know, your personal time is exactly that. It's personal. So, you know, I think my children, what I help do is facilitate for my kids, what is it that they enjoy, and help them figure that out. I'm very lucky. My son is an avid reader like me, so he'll grab a book and he'll be in the backyard on a lounge chair reading a book. And my daughter loves to swim. Now, swimming isn't, go figure, swimming isn't happening right now, but we, thank God, my husband and I, we created a stay in place, our own, basically a Velcro strap that she can put around her waist that she's anchored on the outside of the pool, and she stays in place and she swims. And that's her alone time. No phone, no music, nothing. Just sit there and swim for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So I find myself in a role with my family as more of to help facilitate what's good personal time for them. Because if I try to employ what works for me, it's not going to work for them. So I just help help pull that out of my children. I think that's the most important thing. You have to do as a parent the discovery with your child and just guide them down a path, and they'll figure it out on their own. Thanks for the question, Michelle.
Well, ladies, this has been an absolutely outstanding sharing of all kinds of tips and tricks and wisdom that was beyond my wildest expectations. For those of you, we had over 200 registrants on this webinar, and we're grateful that you've been able to join us. Notice the link on this last slide will indicate where you might be able to view the rest of the webinars. Please check out CWEEL through our website or through our social media platforms. We look forward to seeing you at more of these types of events, and hopefully as a member of CWEEL. Thank you all for your time, and God bless every single one of you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.